Hey, thanks for tuning into the Zelos Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This week, I invite back Katie Guillory. She's a strength conditioning coach for Louisiana State University, the women's gymnastics team, and beach volleyball. She went through quite an ordeal over the summer, and we're supposed to meet at the NSCA National Conference, but something else came up. You're going to hear a little bit more about it in just a few minutes. But before that, check out my website, rockysnyder.com. We have got continuing education units available for physical therapists, chiropractors, athletic trainers, strength coaches, personal trainers. You pick your whatever you want. We've got online, in person, and a whole bunch more. Plus podcast archives, blogs, and if you're interested in training with me, either virtually or in person, you can do that too. Now, just a word from our sponsors before we get underway. This episode of the Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere, with just an iPad or an iPhone, and no wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ's markerless motion capture in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, analyzing posture and gait mechanics, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit them at kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. You know, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have Metabolic Elite be one of the sponsors of the Zelos Podcast. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. I've seen a lot of supplements and performance enhancement things over the years, but they pair clinical experience with innovation, like LipiTab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption, like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, it's trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. So learn more at metabolicelite.co. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, ZELOS. And before we get underway, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Rocky_Snyder, SNYDER. Click subscribe, give us some comments, tell a few friends, enjoy the show. Katie, it's great to have you back on the podcast. It hasn't been that long, but the last time you were on, things were a little different. And now they're really different. So it's going to be a really interesting conversation to explore all the ins and outs. And for the listening audience, definitely go to the podcast archives and check out the last time Katie and I spoke, because we actually got connected through Boo Schexnayder, and both adore that man. And, you know, Boo, he was just recently, he's going to be inducted, like, I think this December. By the time this podcast airs, it's probably going to be right around that time, but he's going to be getting inducted into the LSU Coaching Hall of Fame, right?
Yep. What a guy.
Dang. Well, they better put a little room on that shelf for another one, because I think in a few years you'll be up there with him. Give us an idea. What's going on in your world?
Yeah, where do you want me to start?
Well, how about this? I'll start it off. So, last summer I'm doing this 2-hour workshop on open and closed chain foot mobilization for the NSCA's national conference. And I get this text from you, all bummed out, that, oh, something came up. I'm not going to be able to be there to assist you in the workshop. And man, I'm really bummed out. And so why don't you tell everybody? it was killing me to oh, well, what happened? And then you tell me what happened, and you're like, yeah, well, that's all right, but I'm really bummed out about not going to freaking Kansas City and meeting you. So anyway, what happened that you couldn't meet me in Kansas City?
Yeah, the morning was July 4th, 2025. I go out on some jet skis with some buddies. Um, we wind up hitting a big wake in a small canal, and all that to say, winded up airborne off the jet ski. And unbeknownst to me, the rope that was attached to the back of the jet ski got tied up around the lower half of my leg. And I'm assuming in the air or sometime when I hit the water, the rope was tangled up in my leg, and the other end of that rope was attached to a jet ski, still going with my buddy on it. Um, and it pretty much severed my leg underwater right there, and had no idea at least for another 2 to 3 minutes until I went to step up on the jet ski when he finally came back around to get us. And that's when I realized I had been bleeding profusely underwater, and the bottom half of my leg was hanging on by one tendon, and because of it being tangled in the rope. So instead of trying to undo the rope, I closed my eyes, said a prayer, and cinched the rope to make a lower tourniquet until we could find a makeshift one. All that to say, 45 minutes later, um, we pretty much had met some people at the restaurant that we were going to have wildlife and fisheries involved. Took some belt off of some stranger, made a homemade tourniquet after cutting the ski rope handle. So we used the belt, this man's belt, and a ski rope handle as a tourniquet, and then floored it in a boat that we had flagged down to the helicopter pad that was what I was told about 6 miles down the river there. And the helicopter was landing just as we were getting there. Got me off, got me braced up, got me in the helicopter, and immediately put me to surgery to try and save the lower half of my leg for 6 hours. Woke up at right around midnight that night. A very faint memory of the doctor coming in and telling me that the surgery did not take. They could not get venous return blood flow back to my leg. So he was going to amputate the next morning, and that's what happened. So since the last time we spoke, I have had a left lower leg below the knee amputation, and in the time I say that the two surgeries, because there was about a 12-hour period, I think, between the trying to save my foot and the actual amputation, where I was on the phone a lot. My sister told me that I asked where my phone was. Meanwhile, mind you, I didn't have my work phone because that had fallen in the bottom of the lake. Um, so that was no more. So I then had to text and call a lot of people searching for work numbers on my personal cell phone number that I didn't have, and trying to cancel meetings and download apps and send emails and for everything that I had lined up for that next week or two. And helping you speak at the NSCA conference was part of that, unfortunately. And through all of the medication and in between surgeries and chaos, this is how much being there meant to me, dude. Is that I texted you, and I kept it vague for a lot of people in initially relaying the traumatic and unfortunate news, because I knew I wouldn't be able to answer phone calls and text messages, but I thought it would just be the right thing to do to let people know that I would not be showing up. Or if you reached out to me and I didn't answer, I know you would have eventually figured it out, but that's just the kind of person I am. And so I tried to get ahead of as much as I could over the next 3 weeks, knowing that I would obviously have bigger fish to fry in that moment. So yeah, the text message to you was very vague, on purpose, of just saying, hey, I unfortunately won't be able to make it. Really, really, really bummed. And ironically enough, was going to help you present on foot mechanics. And here I am having to relearn all of one side foot mechanics while I have no foot on the other side. So it's been a challenge, dude. But ironic.
Oh my gosh.
Ironic.
Yeah, and then to further put this in perspective, you're like, well, at least that was the side that was giving me the most trouble.
It was. Did I say that to you?
You did. You're like, oh my gosh, she can even make it like light of the situation. I guess she's really looking for the brighter side of things. Oh
Yeah,
my
I'm not a
gosh.
person that sulks. I don't know if you remember me saying this, but I've had a lot of knee surgeries and hip surgeries over the span of the last 12 or 13 years. So kind of coming back from injury is unfortunately been my life. And uh, like, I'm not a sulker. It's just if I was, I wouldn't have made it this far. And it's just kind of that's the life I've unfortunately had to live, and the cards I've been dealt. And you don't choose what happens to you for the most part, and it definitely in this situation. But you can choose how you respond to it, and you can choose to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And um, at that point I was in good spirits because I was fully supported by everyone and above and beyond, and that means more to me than losing a leg. And I was happy to be alive. There was a few minutes there. We're out in the middle of nowhere and there's no help, and half the people I'm with have never been out there with me before and have no idea where we are. And I knew in that moment that if I go into shock from losing so much blood or I go unconscious, my chances of survival go down substantially. Um,
Hmm.
and once I got into the helicopter, they tell me that I was probably one of the calmest patients they've ever had. And I told them that was just because I realized I was going to live. And I was just happy to be alive. And I was so proud of my team that I was with. I think we handled it with poise and execution. And you never wish for anyone to be in a traumatic injury like that, like those assisting me. And you can never fully plan for it, but they executed it to a T, and I can't brag on them enough for helping me with that. Because if they panic as well, or if they don't execute that, I don't know if I survive. I want to say there's a pretty good shot, but doing the math on the amount of blood I was losing, doing the math on the lack of resources, doing the math on the help that we didn't have immediately, and the rate in which I was losing blood. It got scary there for a second. So I was just happy to be alive. Like,
Yeah.
all that to say, I live by a sense of humor. I think life's better that way. So, um, yeah, that's funny.
And it
I
didn't
feel
take
very
you long.
comfortable saying that to you.
Oh, that was great. But it didn't take you long to get back to coaching. Now, for a listening audience that haven't heard our previous conversation, Katie is strength conditioning coach at Louisiana State University, LSU Tigers, primarily women's gymnastics and volleyball. And so you get basically released from the hospital weeks later, and you don't even waste time. You just go right back to work.
No, I got discharged on a Saturday. That they basically told me whenever you're ready to go, you can go. So that Saturday, I felt like I was ready, and then I texted my boss and said I want to come in on Monday, and she told me I was crazy and to stay home. And then I had a more serious conversation with her and just kind of asked her, like, told her how much it would help my mental health and how much I loved what I did, and I missed the athletes, and I missed being there. And I knew I probably wouldn't be of help. I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. I wanted it to continue to run with their guidance and oversight. But I just wanted to be there. I didn't want to be in the hospital anymore. I hadn't seen daylight, in 15 days. I wanted to be back to a place that I missed fearlessly. And she once I told her that, she allowed me to come back in. So roughly for about 3 weeks, I was probably in between sessions and like trying to do my own training and rehab before my prosthetic. I was in there probably 3 or 4 weeks for, I would say, anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a week. So, and then it just gradually built on that. And then by the time school came around on August 26th or 31st, I don't really recall. It seems like so long ago. I was pretty much back full time. I was ready to hit
Okay.
the ground running.
So here's my question. Did your coaching ability improve because you weren't, at first at least, able to physically demonstrate lifts or moves to your athletes?
Oh, well, yeah, of course. But I will say this is how much LSU, when I say endless support from everybody immediately. My boss, Melissa Seal, and our administration. moved our part-timer position on the Olympic side into a short-time, full-term position that would also assist me as needed, and help cover any sessions that I had. So I immediately had help, um, and a person that is certified and very, very qualified, and he's an amazing dude. And then I was lucky to have two interns that were helping me with my teams, and they had both been there with me in prior semesters. So they had already known what my expectations were, how sessions were run, familiar with the weight room. So when I say Rocky, best case scenario, from just how it worked out, as well as admin and my boss putting, his name is Ezra, Ezra into that position for me has helped me tremendously. So when it came not only to setups, but it came to demonstrating, I will say either I had him demonstrate, or I really had to talk through with our interns way ahead of time. Hey, this is how I want you to demonstrate it. This is how you're going to cue it. And they got a lot of practice, from getting it right to understanding what to cue. And some days I would guide them through that with the kids. I would just have them demo it and I would talk through it. But other days I'm like, no, we're gonna go through this an hour ahead of time, and you're gonna present this. You're gonna talk through it, you're gonna cue it, you're gonna demonstrate it, and you have to get this right. And they did. And I try to be as gracious as I could with my time, to help them learn, but also to make sure that our training sessions, once the athletes got in, were as prepared as we could be, and that was put in position to run as effectively and efficiently and safely as possible.
Wow. And we're talking some high caliber athletes. I mean, the LSU women's gymnastics national champions in 2023, almost back to back, 24, sorry, almost back to back championships this year, very close. And volleyball also did quite well, did they not?
Yeah, beach volleyball is a
Beach
team of
volleyball.
LSU. Just wanted to make sure we're clear on that. But they had a rough ending to a year. And I don't mean that in terms that we did terrible. I think we had a lot of new kids. I think we had a lot of young talent. I think we had a lot of different leadership styles that we, I think, struggle to kind of cohesively manage throughout the year. And I think we finished out exactly where we were supposed to be. But I know that we can do better. And that is, and trust me, I've been on their butt all fall about trying to change their mentality and our approach. And obviously, some of this struggle and unfortunate amputation with me has kind of, I hope, lend itself to no excuses, and for us to continue to get work done, and be locked in when we need to be, and just being intentional with everything we do. That's it.
Yeah, I would think they would be hard pressed to kind of come up to you and complain a little bit, at least in the immediate time frame. So, if you're doing something, then why the hell can't they? And
Yeah.
I gotta say, I've been loving watching your routines, watching the comeback kid, whatever you want to call yourself. I mean, from um, adding additional weight to your lower left side when doing pull-ups, to the sled drives that you've been working with, to just getting fit, i- physically into the prosthetic. Now, I'm curious, do you have more than one prosthetic?
Right now, I have two prosthetics. I
Yeah.
have one that is an everyday one that you probably see mostly, and then I do have a weightlifting one that is meant to handle a lot of stacked weight under some compressive load. So
Okay. So, okay, I got to share a story with you because it's going to lead into the questions that you're experiencing right now. I'd love to know is that I had a client that I trained for many years. He was an adventure athlete, adventure sports athlete. He lost his right arm on an Alaskan fishing trawler. He got his arm engaged into the drive shaft of the boat, and it basically chewed it up and spit it out. He was applied a tourniquet while he was out on the Bering Sea off the Aleutian Islands, and they basically put him on the fish and on the ice with a tourniquet, and they were able to get a helicopter to take him to a university medical clinic like you went to. They were not able to save it. So he came to me after that had happened, and he is a big wave surfer, and he is a long distance paddler. So you lay down on a paddle board prone, and you just go either on your knees or on your stomach. And so we trained for what we call the Molokai to Oahu crossing inter Hawaiian Island challenge,
Yeah.
which is over 30 miles through, through some pretty treacherous stuff. All the while he's surfing at Mavericks and up off the coast of Oregon at Nelscott Creek, Nelscott Reef. Anyway, his name's Jeff, and he was just hard as nails, trained hard, put away wet. He was just like continuously. There were one crossing when he did it 1 year, his arm fell off because the suction did not maintain itself, and he finished the race just using one arm, which was amazing in itself. But through that, the muscular development, the adaptation, the I won't say that the development of his torso and how it related down into his legs started to evolve in such a way where we were trying the best we could to offset it, to try to balance things out because of the unique style of force production and patterning.
Yeah.
So long winded, you're experiencing some of that. Like, what are you experiencing? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can feel it. I can feel it every day if I'm not careful. So I've worked with a PT now, outpatient, once a week for a while, and we've been working on my walking gait. And part of it is just making sure that the functionality of the prosthetic gives me all the things. So checking my knee range of motion, my hip range of motion out of the prosthetic, and then once I'm in the prosthetic, and then functionally once I'm moving. So we can really see how much the prosthetic changes the degrees of freedom that I have as I'm moving through my walking gait, if you will. Um, and then we start to change what we can change. I've learned, a lot about the hip musculature and firing patterns will happen a lot sooner and a lot more frequently because I don't have a lower leg to ground me on for balance. So
Mm.
now a lot of my main hip movers become stabilizers as well. Um, and then understanding, I've been through a lot of knee surgeries and quad atrophy will happen with that. We all know that. But now I'm just over 4 months out. My quad atrophy is still slim to none. I just can't find a way at this point yet to consistently burn it out because I'm unable to get on a leg extension machine because if you think my ankle joint now that I have, well, the prosthetic is supposed to suction into the bottom of my knee joint where my calf muscle is. But at the end of the day, it is not a secure attachment. There's still some movement there because the system is broken. It's still in two pieces. As much as we try and want to suction and glue it to become one cohesive unit as possible on a lower limb, it's still going to give and bend and in that mid tibia shaft that it's your body's not supposed to. So what happens when I put on a leg extension machine is basically the tibial joint just jams into the prosthetic. So I'm getting more pain, I'm getting no muscle activation, enough that would at least be the stimulus in which I need. So we've been struggling. My athletic trainers at LSU, we had done BFR for a while before I got my prosthetic, or really kind of the week of, and it got so painful because I was ready for the weight of the prosthetic, but we're running to the same problem where they cut the tibial bone. My tibial bone is now about, I will say,
4 inches.
this
Yeah.
long at
You
the
got your
end.
fibula too? Tib and fib still there, or they
Yes,
removed the
yes.
fib?
No, the fib
Okay.
is still there. And then that's another topic because that's just in the back, kind of so free in
Floating.
motion that it is. Oh man, it's crazy pain if I'm not careful with keeping up with my socks and stuff
Yeah.
socket. But um, the tibial head, the bottom now of that just keeps jamming into the socket because that's the only hard structure. After that, it's just soft tissue and fascia. So it it's hard to get any type of quad activation without having the tibial bone knocking into the prosthetic. And right now that's hard plastic, and that it hurts, man. It hurts right now. I'm trying to get rid of.
The front edge, the anterior edge of the tibia slamming against the prosthetic. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to get rid of a bursa sac over that right now because we
Oh,
just can't. Yeah, I can't find a way to do it, and I can band it. We've tried to makeshift a bunch of stuff. I mean, I'm doing burnout sets of like upwards of 200 on some short arc quads, and I'm still it. I can't even get to a point where I can feel a burn, you know. So trying to do some research there, and hopefully, you know, if anyone listening to this has any advice, feel free to shoot it my way because we're trialing and erroring just about every day. So yeah, VMO activation is been the really the limiting factor right now because that has started to play into a slight off tracking of my kneecap. Um, and in the prosthetic, you know, your kneecap fits in this little U shape, and your kneecap sits right here, so there's not much room to move up and down or around. So it's got to be snug enough to hold your kneecap in place, but not too tight to where it can't move as your knee bends and extends with flexion and extension. So we're working through that every week with my prosthetic rep. Yeah, trying to get security with motion, trying to get activation without pain. It's been a ride, dude. It's been a ride.
yeah.
So that's the main focus right now, and it's I'll be honest, it's a little bit depressing. You know, we wear Whoop as a beach volleyball team, and you know it has your like Whoop age on there, and I was doing so well about my physiological age versus my biological age, and after this injury, just seeing that creep up to basically meeting my biological age where it's at, it's been sad, and I can't um you know, I can't let it consume me, but I've got to keep going with what I need to keep going with. You know, I can sit here and do conditioning all day, but that's not helping the priority be the priority with my quad. You know, that I need the musculature there for a firing sequence that is going to help me and my walking gait become better and more stabilized, and more balanced. So all that to say, I can feel it in my back a little bit. I can feel it in my hips a little bit. Um, you know, my prosthetic right now is like in terms of some funny comedian, a bent back paper clip. So, which if you watch the video, you've seen it. Um, it's got a little bit of give. So it's meant to have a little bit of coil and recoil to provide some elastic energy, um,
Sure.
that an ankle joint is supposed to. So if I'm not careful and I don't have that side, meaning my left side of my lower half, really braced and actively trying to think about grabbing the ground when I walk on that side, it'll collapse. And as you know, once that side collapses, the hips go off, then what happens to the shoulders? They go. So I find myself leaning, and I'm walking like a massive with a massive limp. So when the days get long and I start being in a lot of pain at the end of the day,
Yeah.
people can tell now, you know, that I'm in a lot of pain by the way that I walk. So,
What's crawling like? Out of curiosity.
um, with my weightlifting foot, not great because it's so hard and so narrow. If I leave this prosthetic on that I have, my everyday prosthetic, and I put a shoe on it, it it's I will say it's one of the better options, but it's not great. I still have a lot of tibial pressure down. I can't load that side enough to get stable because
Without the prosthetic.
um you know I crawled today, and it is weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
Doable. It's very doable. You know, you're just on your hands and your knees. Um, the doctor, one of the doctors, after surgery, did some nerve damage on that side, which I'll leave at that. Probably my biggest PTSD out of all of this. Um, and it was on the front side of where they sutured up. So basically they took my calf, they wrapped it underneath and then sewed the front line. So if my leg is just hanging in front of you right now, it almost looks like a smiley face kind of at the bottom. And that's where the suture line is, and obviously that's where they cut all the nerves and the fascia and all the blood vessels. So one of the doctors ripped off some stuff too soon and did a lot of nerve damage up front. and it took a very long time to heal, and that spot is still sensitive. So when I'm doing crawling on the
Mm.
ground, I'm hesitant to let anything, without even realizing it, hit the ground or hit that one spot. Trying to work through it every day with myself and then my PT of doing some real desensitization work, and trying to get better at just trusting myself or it to come in contact with anything, without guarding that area. So
Mm. And okay, the prosthetics that you have, they're not weight equivalent to a lower leg, are they? Most of them these days are carbon fiber, Kevlar, cast aluminum, something of that nature that's truly light. So you're not getting the slowing of the hip. Like you say, you feel like you're moving too quickly at times through that side.
yeah, good question. The permanent ones are light. And what I mean by that is the prosthetic itself. So if you look at the lower half of the actual prosthetic, which is supposed to be my foot, and the upper half that connects where my leg goes into is a socket. Those two things are different, and I don't think a lot of people understand, um, that your socket obviously is a part of that weight. Your socket, once you are fitted and your shape of your stuff is stabilized, then they give you a kind of a carbon fiber casting of that to put in your prosthetic. So the whole thing together is as light as it can be. But right now I'm still in a temporary socket because I'm still sizing down. So it's like a heavy plastic. So all in all, I haven't had a prosthetic yet that weighs less than 5 pounds. And you're like, 5 pounds, that's not a lot. I'm a small little girl, and like you look at, you were to weigh my leg below the knee, it's a lot less than 5 pounds. And every half pound matters with that. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I can get something closer to 3.5, maybe 4 pounds by the end of this.
Yeah. So aside from this, I won't say consuming, but taking up a good deal of your mental energy and your physical time and so on. How do you balance that with your coaching right now? I'm curious.
Man, I mentioned it. Whew, it is literally, it has shifted and broken every system or thought process or preparation pattern that I thought that I had. Because
Tell me, what do you mean?
I can wake up, you get into a rhythm. Let's say before this happened, you get into a rhythm, you have an idea what your schedule's like, your rhythm, your wake times, your sleep times, what every day is going to kind of be like. Build a routine, right? And then you build systems into those routines of, this is my lifting system. This is when I'm in continue education. This is when I'm going to my meetings. You just kind of build your schedule, and that schedule consists of different system and routines that work for you. Um, and this has thrown all that aside because I can wake up and think I'm going to feel great, and I don't. And it can be total opposite of that. But as I mentioned to you earlier, our part-time guy and our interns have been, Rocky, they've been a lifesaver to me in this. And don't get me wrong, my boss and all of admin have been phenomenal. They've gotten me golf carts, they've gotten me help, they've gotten me support. My coaches have been awesome. My athletes have understood. Um, and I will try and give them every inch of me that I can. But I also have to make sure I have enough in the tank to where I am not losing myself here. And also trying to avoid avoidance and processing this as it comes, and asking for help. So as much as I think I can kind of get into routines, it took me 11 weeks, either 10 or 11 weeks, to finally get my head above water at work, where every waking moment that I had that was free was either not catching up on work or falling asleep because I was so exhausted. And some of that, be a byproduct or contribution of medication that I'm maybe having to take all day. And other part of it is me just being mentally and emotionally, exhausted, and rightfully trying to catch up and process this and do a full-time job while taking care of this, amongst, a few other side hustles. So it's it's been rough. It's taken 10 weeks, but I've had so much help and support, dude. I wouldn't have done it without the structure and the system I've had in place to allow me the flexibility to either give myself a minute when I need, really ask for help when I need, or to be able to like feel good and lead a session when I can. So
Well, you mentioned the side hustles, Steel Gill being one of them.
Kind of. I'm not ready to release it yet, but there's been some things at work, and I was hoping to have some stuff released by the end of November, but I'm trying to give myself some grace and time with it. But I will let you know when it's just about complete.
We're just going to take a quick pause from this conversation to acknowledge our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. The Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere with just an iPad or iPhone. No wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. At the forefront of metabolic elite is Jim Lavelle, internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, a chief science officer at Lifetime, and the co-chair for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He's got over 4 decades of experience and has guided Olympic athletes, professional teams, and leading health institutions. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. Like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, it's trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, ZELOS. How about this though? You're a backcountry woman. You are a huntress. Any trips planned? Because we are in hunting season right now. I mean, deer's in full
Yeah.
swing, birds and ducks. Are you going into the bayou or the backwoods? Going to do some hunting pretty soon?
That's a great question, and it's ironic that you asked because um, I just a few weekends ago I went squirrel hunting with my brother and his kids on some of our property back in New Iberia, Louisiana. So that's down south. And
That's where
then
Tabasco's made.
yeah, near Avery Island. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I have a hunting trip coming up in a few weeks.
Oh yeah.
Yep, in South Carolina. And then Bill Gillespie came down here to visit me a few weeks ago from Sornex, and he was talking about going hog hunting in Alabama at some point. And I re-emphasized to him how much fun that sounds and how much I love hunting, and he was like, "You should come along." So
Heck
I
yeah.
don't know when the date for that is yet, but yeah, I booked my flight the other day to it was literally 2 days ago to go hunting in first weekend of December. So yeah,
Get some boar. Yeah, wild boar.
yeah, yep.
Okay, so that's night scope, or are we talking compound bow, or what do you do?
I really don't know. Well, these
Oh, you
trips,
haven't done it before?
I not hog hunting. I've not been hog hunting. No, I'm
Um,
assuming it's not with a bow. But you know what? I'm down for anything. I love the camaraderie. I love being out in nature. I love just animals. I love even if I don't get to shoot or kill, just being around, the process and breaking bread over that.
that's it.
Yeah,
Mental. Talk
that
about
is
mental
really
health. Fantastic.
exactly.
No, sincerely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whether it's hunting down waves or going fishing or whatever, my workout partner is a big hunter. He's got himself a dog, and they go out all the time, and
Oh, I
um,
love
up in northeastern Oregon and wherever. But yeah, we've got wild boar here in Santa Cruz, up in the mountains. And if
no
you
way.
get on somebody's property that allows you to,
Yeah.
well, it's eggs and sausage for breakfast, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're gearing up for gymnastics season. Has the team began? It's usually winter into spring, right? So when's the season for LSU gymnastics women's?
Yeah, their first official competition is, I believe, the first or second weekend in January. Second,
Okay.
I believe.
So you're just kind of the unofficial preseason right now, or are you guys in? Are you able to train right now?
No, we're able to train. Yeah, we're in it.
Okay.
I think preseason, there's never an official start to that, but normally it rolls around once I feel like we start inter squads, essentially, and we have about 4 or 5 of those. That's normally around after the first or second one is when I really start making a shift in our training, because it really for me goes off of our system with gymnastics. So the coaches, when they are really ready to start incorporating full routines or near full routines for those kids, that's whenever I consider us to be really in preseason, and that's been happening for probably about 2 or 3 weeks now. So
All right. And how many women are on the squad or on the team?
I believe we have 21 this year.
Wow, that's a big squad.
Yeah, we had 24 a few years ago. You get all your COVID residuals and then your newcomers, and yeah,
Do you have, are they all around, or are there specialists also?
there's a mix of both. Yep.
Okay. And so last time we were talking about the this kind of propensity to have the female gymnast with excessive lordosis, the anterior tilt of the pelvis, really a lot of hip flexion and a lot of spinal extension. And of course, down in the feet, they're always on their toes blasting off. So there's always plantar flexion, but they lack dorsiflexion. That puts strain in the Achilles, and then you get a whole bunch of things coming up for that. Um, have you developed some strategies you want to share, like with others? Like, what are you doing to kind of combat the effects of explosive gymnastics? Because, first of all, how about this? Like, the 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 modern female gymnast is so freaking powerfully different
Yeah.
than 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the athlete has morphed into something almost, I won't say unrecognizable, but just so completely different than, say, even 2000 at the Sydney Olympics. Right? If we look back, we're going to see like, oh my gosh, crazy.
Yeah. Um, this year I've kept us slower longer. And when I say
Ooh,
slower, I mean tempo. I mean a lot of tempos, eccentrics, isometrics, almost like I still, you still go through your triphasic cycle, if you will, but I've almost taken Monday morning. So really my big two lift days are Monday mornings and Friday afternoons. So I'm the first person they see and the last person they see in the week as our two major training days. And I've taken Monday mornings as I hate doing mobility with them, and they don't know the difference, but to you guys who do, they're hypermobile already. But
yeah.
when I say mobility, we know we're looking at active and passive mobility, and we're looking at what the brain can control in ranges of motion. So we're looking at controlled articular rotations, things like that. So I take a little bit more time in our warm up to do things like that, and then that's really kind of like our lower intensity isometric day. And then what we
Mm.
do on Friday afternoons after we're done and they have the weekend to recover is I've really tried to hammer them home with eccentrics, and doing that in floating heel positions, doing that in knee over toe positions, doing that in somewhat of spinal loaded positions as much as I can, because I know once I get in the season, I'm really not going to be able to do that. And putting, if for example, if we're looking at squats, doing bilateral squats, doing unilateral squats, doing split squats, doing floating heels squats, doing Zercher squats, doing Hatfield split squat, floating heel, eccentrics. And then if I wanted to even do for those who are coming back from Achilles injuries, or have had them in the past, or I notice have had um, accumulating asymmetries that are symptomatic, I kind of do a little bit of both, where we're kind of getting some collagen tissue remodeling. We're kind of getting some time under tension, especially if they're not doing a ton of gymnastics at that time. So trying to prepare them for the preseason in which they're going to probably accumulate a little bit more spike and load than I would foresee someone else who has been going a little bit more steady. So I say I've kept us slower longer. I've kept us with a good mix of contralateral and ipsilateral work, um, more so than normal, and just building a better, robust core, integrating in with the shoulder. Um, and I'm curious to see how it plays out, to be honest with you. I've done a lot more if we're really focused on postural positioning. I've really looked at, like you just talked about, anterior pelvic tilt. We looked at lordosis. Um, we all know lower abdominal. We all know distal hamstring. We all know, the lengthened hip flexor. We know the shortened distal end of the quad. So I know where the defaults are. So I've kind of paired on Monday, for example, soft tissue work in the lift of the superset in the areas that are from the quad that are taking the most pounding, and then doing some hip flexor lengthening work where the time and attention can help facilitate more toward the weaker part of the hip flexor and the quad. Um, and then from an Achilles standpoint, I've tried to do a little bit more locked knee stuff this year. I talked earlier on the summer to a guy named Kyle Simmons. Kyle Sammons. He's with Arizona Cardinals in the NFL, and it resonated with me when he was talking about mechanisms for just overall Achilles and what I can change and can't change, um, and really just manipulating eversion, inversion, and doing it in a deficit with a knee lock. I'm hoping that could um, help us from a muscular tendon standpoint, from the calf and Achilles tendon complex, can help distribute a little bit more of the load that would best replicate what they're experiencing on the recoil of the floor as they are punching into the floor. Um, so he really made me see things from a joint angle standpoint a little bit differently. So I haven't really made any major adjustments. The first year I got gymnastics, our schedule was like this on Monday mornings and Friday mornings or afternoons, depending on if we had recruits. And now it's kind of changed back to that after 2 years. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed that we can at least alleviate some soft tissue injuries and then some tendon injuries, and then um, what comes next is really trying to dive into um, your analysis of human movement in motion. I think a lot of what I've learned from you in terms of at least, using the wedges and then the tripod foot and how that affects everything up the chain. I can understand now where the kids may need certain wedge work. The
Mhm.
problem I've run into is our recovery mornings or recovery sessions that I have with them are not on firm ground. They're in the gymnastics facility on the bouncy floor. So wedge work will only go so far. I don't really have firm ground with them, so I'm trying to reevaluate how we can best incorporate that. Maybe using the wedges barefoot in season, especially for our all arounders, to help maybe alleviate or offset some load and maybe re-educate some better, healthier patterns with proper mobility and synchronization.
I love your brain. That is awesome. Really great strategies and good thought process. And definitely we can kick around some ideas
Yeah.
as the weeks progress here because that's some really cool stuff. Um, okay. And then with your beach volleyball, I could see there being similar carryovers because the surface or environment, the play environment is going to be in some ways rather than bouncy, it will be more absorbing and chaotic, obviously. But there's still a tremendous amount of lower leg work being done there, but obviously throughout the body. Are you taking a completely different approach, or you're kind of keeping with the same framework, just applying it to what they need?
I would say just in general, knock on wood, that our beach volleyball kids are a lot healthier in nature than our gymnasts. There's a lot of athletes that are healthier in nature when comparing them to gymnasts. And yes, the absorptive qualities of the sand help our beach kids not only with really functional ankle mobility, but it on the downside of that, you got to understand what they're losing. They're losing with gymnastics is getting overdosed. So gymnastics has an overly buoyant floor, and then beach volleyball has an overly absorbent floor. So you got to understand on the stretch shortening cycle, they exist on opposite ends of the spectrum. And gymnastics are going to be way more tendon driven, hence all of their tendon injuries. And then beach volleyball is going to be a lot more muscular driven. So our training will definitely reflect that, and gymnastics uses a lot more elastic energy repetitively, and beach volleyball uses a lot more visually cueing because they have a defensive side to their game. Um, when you look at visually processing what people on the other side of the net are doing, a lot of their movements are timely based on that. So there is a timing component um, of trying to match defenders to blockers and things like that on game style plays. So and there's a lot more just natural agility and change of direction with beach that you're really not going to get from multiplanar level with gymnastics. So my training should reflect all of that. And with beach, I have 4 days in the fall for the most part, unless they're in 20-hour weeks and playing. I have 4 days a week with them, so we really get down to it, and a lot of that, especially in the beginning, will come with a lot of aerobic conditioning and a lot of aerobic power work. So they got to be able to withstand a lot of high power output repetitively for potentially multiple matches in a day, potentially upwards of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So we got to make sure they can handle that. So glycogen storage is real, power output is real, and being resilient to that and that heat is real.
My gosh, I'm so jealous of you. I mean, you've just
It's a
got
cool job, dude. I'm not gonna lie.
it's a cool job.
Now do you understand why I want to get back 2 days after I got out of the
Oh,
hospital?
heck yeah. Heck yeah. I'd actually get the gymnastics team out in the sand and play with some of those volleyball players so
I
you could take them
wish.
away.
I wish.
Yeah, that'd be
I
so
don't want
fun.
them. But I thought about that a lot, and I do early on in the summer, as we approach, gymnastics gets done in mid-April, right around early summer, so mid to late May is whenever I kind of pick back up with them again, and we'll do just sand walking and jogging and
Mm.
shuffling, and and they're like 20 minutes in the sand, that's it for today. I'm like, that's it, bro. They're smoked after 10 minutes of just walking in the sand, just
Right.
using a complete, like we talked about, surface, a complete opposite end of the spectrum, will kind of force hopefully some degrees of freedom within the ankle or the foot itself, um,
Yeah.
and help them get off of their toes a little bit and get onto their heels and in their arches, and
Yeah.
interesting.
Disrupt some patterns all the way through the
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
Unbelievable. Katie, this time flies by. Every time I chat with you, it does.
it does.
I adore you. And man, you're such a survivor on so many levels and a champion, even more so. And I know that you're helping others to overcome adversity, whether it's on a gymnastics mat, a beach court, or for that matter, just people out in public. So you're just a true hero. I can't thank you enough for coming back on and sharing your truths and what's going on.
I appreciate that genuinely. This has made me realize a lot about life and what legacy I ultimately and specifically want to leave, and that's been cool to kind of recalibrate. So I got to thank you for continuing to want to invest in me and think that I'm cool enough to want to be my friend, because I don't think I'm that cool, but I appreciate that you think so. And I'm not a hero. There are plenty of people who fight for this country day in and day out, and we'll never know their names, and um, I, I don't like to compare myself to them, but I will say if I can be a light to the world, or motivation to one day for one person who may be struggling. That's what I want to do, and that's what I want to be about. And I want to live a life of no excuses, and I want to be able to let people see that by the way that I live, and not necessarily by what I just say. So that means a lot.
Right on. Well, thank you. And there we go. Another episode in the books. Man, Katie is a force to reckon with. And what she does with her players at LSU, amazing. Checking her out a little bit more. Can't thank her enough for coming on, as well as LSU for making this happen. And I just want to have one more word from our sponsors and check you out next week.
Remember to check out metabolicelite.co. Check out all the products they have on their website. Synapsin Pro is something I've been using to help stay focused without having to over-caffeinate myself. It keeps me in the zone so I can just really hone in on the things I need to achieve without feeling like, man, I gotta reach for an energy drink every 5 minutes. Metabolicelite.co. And don't forget, Kinetic IQ. They've got markerless motion capture for morons like me. I can use their product with my iPhone or my iPad. I can look at posture analysis, movement analysis of any exercise, gait analysis. It gives me everything I could possibly want when tracking people's movements. So, check out kineticiq.com.